How's it going, CinemaBlend fans? Events editor Eric Eisenberg here, coming to you from the legendary Stanley Hotel, where I am here to celebrate the upcoming release of Dr. Sleep. There are so many amazing activities going on here this weekend, starting off with The Shining Ball. Of course, I am now in costume as the quote-unquote injured guest from The Shining.
Great party, isn't it?
There are a lot of theories and ideas about the secret meanings behind Stanley Kubrick's film.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you personally subscribe to any of them.
I find them all fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, having poured through now his actual production design plans and had the experience of trying to put my camera exactly where his camera was, you know, there are a lot of things that I'd imbued a lot of meaning to that now that I've kind of been in the room, I'm like, oh no, it's just a better shot here. It's just more symmetrical, it works better. I find all those things to be fascinating, and I think part of the enigma of Kubrick is that he was always operating on so many multiple levels. You know, you can only scratch the surface with what he's communicating in every shot of his work. Yeah. I mean, I'm utterly incapable of this level of genius that he had. I would rule out nothing when it comes to the degree of genius that he could have buried information into his films. I rule out nothing. I find it fascinating. But no, nothing specifically regarding the Shining theories reared up at me when we were doing our recreations anyway.
So you've been so clear throughout this entire process just how much respect you have not only for Stephen King but also Stanley Kubrick. But just keeping that in mind and also just recognizing how much the movie honors both of those legacies and both of those masters, was there a point where you basically just had to say to yourself, I really just need to make a Mike Flanagan film?
Oh, absolutely. And that was kind of the third gear of the whole thing, because you know it's overwhelming to be in both of these shadows, you know, in King's and in Kubrick's. There was no way I'm not Stanley Kubrick. I'll never be Stanley Kubrick. You know, there was only one, there'll only ever be one. And it was clear to me from the beginning that if I tried to make a Stanley Kubrick film, I was going to fail so spectacularly. So yeah, at the end of the day, kind of the pressure of the whole thing made me feel like, you know, I've got to kind of do it on my own terms. I'm never going to please everybody in this scenario, never.
Right.
So if I can please myself as such a rabid fan of both of these kind of icons, and make the movie I want to make, like just kind of do everything I can so that what I saw in my head when I read the book is what you see on the screen, you know, give or take, then that's the only thing I could do. So yeah.
Having the experience of working on a King adaptation before, having made Geralds Game, was that kind of a boon to you? Like, having that experience helpful?
Well, it certainly, I think, you know, gave Steve a reason to trust me a little bit.
Sure.
Because this is a really sensitive project for him too.
Definitely.
And if he hadn't given me his blessing to try to, you know, fold Dr. Sleep into that visual language of Kubrick, I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done the film. But yeah, you know, Gerald's Game was an incredibly daunting adaptation and had a very high degree of difficulty, and I felt very much without a safety net on that movie. Yeah. I felt the same way here, even more so. Yeah. So I think without that experience, I wouldn't have been able to get through the days without just vomiting, you know, out of nervous energy on this one.
Sure.
But, yeah.
There are certain changes that are necessary made from the book just to fit with Stanley Kubrick's film, but there are also other changes that you make to the story. And this is kind of dipping into spoiler territory, but I'm curious if we can just talk about kind of the freedom and just moving in certain directions that, move away from the book.
Yeah. Well, you know, he is very, very intentionally, you know, he approves everything that you do. He's always there to kind of say yes or no to things, but once the train's left the station and you're making the movie, he stays away very intentionally. He wants it to be yours. Now, he won't, as you know, happened to Stanley Kubrick, he won't be shy if he doesn't like what you do. And that's always been my biggest fear, is that if he kind of trusts me to play in his sandbox and I mess it up, you know, oh my God, like as such a fan, like how will I live with myself? So a lot of that pressure is self-imposed. He doesn't put it on you. It's just there, you know, it's unspoken. And so the changes in this case were tricky because, first I had to go to him and say, I really think the visual language of this movie has to be Kubrick's language. And he initially was resistant to that. He really has very strong feelings about that film because of the changes that were made. And I also said, I also plan on changing the ending. But I think the type of changes, once I described them to him, they actually made him feel pretty excited. And that's the exciting thing for me, is that, he's at the end of the day, he's really clear about the book is one thing, the movie is its own thing. They're two separate expressions of a story. And in the case of Dr. Sleep in particular, you've got the Shining novel, you've got the Kubrick film, you've got Dr. Sleep the novel, and Dr. Sleep the movie is its own thing, and it pulls from all of those. But it is very much trying to kind of pull them all together into one experience. We'll see how we did.
There's a scene early in the film where Wendy is calling out to Danny, and the voice match is so incredibly perfect.
Yeah.
How?
That's Alex Esso.
Yeah?
Yeah, she can just do that.
Yeah.
And the whole strategy with those parts was, I didn't want people doing an impression. I knew we didn't want to even go down the road of a digital, kind of recreated actor performance. That just feels uncanny and takes me out of things. But I wanted actors who reminded me of those performances while still doing something of their own. And so the whole goal was just find an actor who can hit a couple of these notes that really remind you of Shelley Duvall or Scatman Carruthers, but are still doing their own performance and are playing Wendy, not playing Shelley. And in Jack's case, playing Jack Torrance as Lloyd, not playing Jack Nicholson. It's a really difficult tightrope to walk for an actor. And fortunately for us, we just found the right people, I hope.